It's Kelly from True Measures Personal Training, and my nutritional tip for today revolves around vegetarians and their constant search for a viable source of protein. Now, while there's a lot of sources of protein in the vegetable world like quinoa, beans, and lentils, something that a lot of vegetarians tend to forget about those protein sources is that they're also sources of carbohydrates as well. And balance is really important when you're putting your meals together. Yes, because you want to make sure you're getting enough protein, but you also want to make sure that you don't have too many carbohydrates in terms of how much protein there is to balance out the meal as well. So I'll use a supplement in cases where, a meal might have some quinoa, or maybe it's lentils and beans, and maybe I'm adding some extra vegetables to the meal to make sure that that balance is there. But if you take something like quinoa, lentils, or beans and add more vegetables, but you don't add another source of protein, you're going to have an imbalance like this. So you want to avoid that. You want to make sure your balance is a little closer together. The other thing to remember is that other foods like dairy products or nuts, people tend to think, yes, there's protein in these foods as well, and there is, but there's also healthy fats in those foods as well. And so there isn't really a high enough protein content in those foods to ensure that they're going to be enough to balance out a snack or a meal if they're the only source of protein that's in that meal. So you want to keep that in mind, and that's one of the reasons why I use supplementation in order to make sure that my needs are being met as a vegetarian. So that just means you're going to be using something like protein powder to drink with maybe a smoothie, or just as a smoothie as a snack, to make sure you're getting the protein in. So when it comes to supplementation, I do like whey protein powder because I find that it's more palatable and it's a good source of protein and calcium. And there's other types of protein sources I'll use as well in the supplement world, like hemp protein powder and pea protein powder. And the reason I like to change it up is because those protein sources also have a very high source of iron, which is an incredibly important nutrient for vegetarians not to miss out on as well. So just remember, make sure that you understand how many carbs are in some of your vegetable protein sources, and that you have a good variety of the types of protein sources that you're supplementing with, and you should be good to go. So today we're going to look at exercises called butterfly claps and eagle taps. And these are great exercises that I turn to when I want to work on or enhance my muscular flexibility and muscular endurance in my back. And it can even be used as a form of enhancing muscular strength when you need a way to target your back muscles outside of the gym. So let's say you don't have any equipment, or you're traveling, or you're at home, you can still work on your back without having the use of back-oriented apparatus. Now, one thing to remember about these exercises is that they're very shoulder intensive. So if you have a shoulder injury, or if you try them and your shoulder bothers you while you're doing it, then maybe you need to address that first before you come back to it. So with all that being said, we'll show you how it's done. Now you're going to be lying face down on the mat or on the ground. And before I go down, you're just going to make sure that you remember that when you're down there, you don't look up, because this puts a lot of pressure on the back of your neck, and you can injure your cervical spine, or you can strain it if you look up while you're doing anything face down on the ground. So you're going to keep your face parallel with the mat. And so once you're in that position, you're going to make sure your face or your forehead is not resting on the mat. You're going to elevate your back enough so that you have room to breathe. So you'll put your hands together in a clapping position, and you'll just bring your arms down to make contact with your hips and back up. So a key thing to remember is to keep your arms in motion the whole time. Make sure that you're moving with fluidity and with ease. And what you're going to do is you're going to exhale on the way down and inhale on the way up. So a key thing to remember as well is to keep breathing throughout the duration of this exercise, because it does ask a lot of major muscle groups in your back while you're doing it. So we use the butterfly claps to target the muscle groups going up and down your back. Now we use eagle taps to target the muscle groups going across your upper back. So when you normally do these two exercises, you're going to do them back to back without getting up in between. So once again, you're down in the face down position. And what you're going to do is extend your fists out to either side as far as you can at shoulder height without locking your elbows. And from there, you're just going to tell your shoulder blades to retract and relax. And of course, you're gonna make sure you're exhaling on the way up and inhaling on the way down, maintaining constant fluidity with your movement. And make sure that you're not forcing the lift. Make sure that when you lift, you just feel like you're stopping where your body says stop and reversing direction. So if you decide to try these 2 exercises and add them into a back regimen that you have, make sure that you strive to do 20 to 30 repetitions per set, and you should be good to go. So my motivational tip for the month revolves around injury and making sure that you remember that it happens to everybody. It happens to the best of us. It doesn't matter how much you train or how much you try to avoid them. They're just a part of life and they're going to happen. So it's nothing to beat yourself up about because it is just a fact of life. Now, the thing I'd like people to remember is that, first of all, an injury is not a license not to do anything. Yes, you have to recover. Yes, you have to heal. But not only is there certain rehabilitative or physiotherapy-oriented exercises you're likely going to need to be doing to help recover, there's still also usually other body parts that haven't been affected that there isn't any reason not to target. So let's say your injury is from the waist down, perhaps it's going to be an opportunity for you to work on chest strength or back strength or core strength, or basically just focus on a part of your physicality that you've never really tried to enhance before when you were focusing on more full body workouts. Similarly, if your injury is in the upper body, there's still a lot of cardiovascular activity you could probably still do, or you could just choose to focus on leg strength for the term of your recovery. Either way, you want to stay active because that's going to help you physically and psychologically in the recovery process. The other thing to remember is something I like to call the XYZ factor. So when injuries happen, you know what? They happened, they're out of your control. That's the X factor, something that you don't have any control over. The Y factor are the factors that you do have control over. So not only can you stay active through your injury and through the rehabilitation process, but you can become a master at what we call treatment protocol. So that means getting informed on what you need to be doing on a daily basis to make sure you're treating your injury as best you can and being motivated to do that. And if you put those 2 things together, you get what we call Z, which is the outcome of the situation. So you got to let go of the stuff you don't have control over, focus on the things that you can do to get better, and of course you're going to have a much more positive journey through this. So just remember, keep your chin up, stay motivated, stay active, and memorize those treatment protocols.